where my understanding of Vietnamese culture comes from. And it instilled in me a really deep pride in my heritage because it gave me such a strong foundation for understanding who I am and understanding the world, understanding who I wanted to be in the world, what values I had. You know, so in Raleigh, I had Vietnamese, which like really strong, like you know, like as like Buddhist Boy Scouts, you know, so we're all like very, it's very energetic. And then at Moving Lovely, I had a softer kind of Zen Buddhism, living with nuns who really showed me what true beauty is, right? So I really experienced unconditional love from a Vietnamese spiritual community, and that gave me just a place to understand myself and understand who I was trying to be. And that was from when I was very young, from my early teen years onward. And I think that in addition to giving me pride in my heritage and giving me a foundation of values, it also gave me a curiosity and appreciation for the everyday and also for the profound, right? I started asking very early on, where did I come from? Why am I here? Why was I given this life that I was given, knowing that my parents had such a difficult life? And my mom was always very proud of being a boat person. She always introduced herself as a Vietnamese woman who came to the United States as a boat person. And I had a lot of uncles who went through re-education for years, and I heard their stories. And over time, I was a very good student in school, but I did not feel that my family's experience was represented anywhere in my study of history, in American culture, in American media. So I always had this question in my mind of, why do I see so much beauty and I appreciate so deeply my family and where we come from? And I feel like we bring so much to this country, but we're not, I don't see that represented outside of my small community, right? So in Raleigh, North Carolina, there just wasn't, you know, a real acknowledgement of the Vietnamese community. And so now I am getting a PhD in history at Columbia University. I think I was drawn to history from when I was an undergrad because of this deep curiosity. I was always asking questions. I loved to read, I loved to write. And I liked that history gave me a means to really explore big questions of life and where we come from and where we're going. So I started digging into Vietnamese history through my mom's story, right? She was so proud of her history, and I wanted to record it. So when I was 24 years old, a few years out of college, I was doing some soul searching because I wasn't totally happy with my career. So I flew home to Raleigh from New York, and I interviewed my mom for like 6 hours about her story, and I wrote about it in an op-ed, and I got it published on the internet, and on beam.org. So the piece is called "The Fruits of Your Suffering: A Letter to My Refugee Mom." So it's a very deeply personal account of her experience as a refugee and my kind of reckoning with what it means for me to inherit that story, for me to be her continuation in the United States. And that was my first taste of what it's like to honor my family's story and my family's history. And shortly afterwards, I decided to apply for a PhD program to really take this all the way, because as I said, we weren't represented, and I wanted us to be represented not just in culture and media, but also in history, in our accounts of, and our understanding of the Vietnam War. Why are we not written in there? So I pursued history as a means of representation and honoring my family. as a Buddhist girl, I also was curious about the history of Vietnamese Buddhism. And that's what my research is about, is the history of Vietnamese Buddhism in the 20th century, Vietnam, and the Buddhist movement during the Vietnam War as well, which I soon learned is extremely controversial. Actually, my first time here in Oregon, at University of Oregon in 2019, I presented on the School of Youth for Social Service, which was Minh-Chau's organization during the 60s. And I spoke about the self-immolation of one of the young women organizers of that school. And a former Republic of Vietnam official denounced me as an evangelical. And that was a rude awakening for me to the politics of our community. Because I came in just wanting to learn about my roots, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a very controversial topic. And our community is very divided on the history, on how we represent our history and understand our history. So it's messy and personal. And my work in history became not just about writing my family's experience into history, our family's experiences into history, but it was also about taking the time to really examine and understand things and to learn how to hold nuance in history. It's not just about writing a narrative that we want to be represented, but it's about really taking the time to see many perspectives, to see the truth and the validity of people who were involved on both sides, to see the humanity of people on both sides. And so I see that as the work of a historian too, is to write about the past in a way that honors every human being that was involved in the conflict. More and more I see that work of being able to hold nuance, being able to see everyone as human, as essential to the future of our Vietnamese community worldwide. If we want to heal the past wounds of our community, if we want to move forward together, if we want to reconcile, we have to be able to see everyone as valid, everyone as human, everyone as having suffered the way that our families have suffered. So it's really about recognizing that shared humanity across political lines. And I recognize that our generation, second gen and onward, has a great privilege of having not lived through all that trauma. And so I see it as our responsibility to do that work, to both honor the history, record the history so that our loved ones are represented, but also move forward by seeing the other side as human and making connections with people who our parents and grandparents saw as the enemy, right? We are the future generations. We don't need to be enemies anymore. We don't need to keep fighting the war. So that's how I see my work as a historian. And that's what I hope to offer to the community through my work.
And I think that transitions as well to then identify in this conversation so that we can move forward those moments